Hey there, let's talk about pollution. I mean, it's everywhere, right? It's that haze you sometimes see on the horizon, the noise on your street. It's literally in the air we breathe. We all know it's there, but have you ever stopped to really think, where does it all come from? Well, today, we're going to trace it right back to the source.
Just think about it for a second. That car horn blaring outside, the exhaust pipe on that city bus. We kind of just accept these things as part of life. But every single bit of it has a starting point. So the big question we're digging into is, where does all of this really begin?
All right, so to get on the same page, what even is pollution? At its core, it's any unwanted substance or effect that causes harm. Simple enough? And every kind of pollution can be traced back to one of two types of sources. You've got your point sources, which are super direct and easy to identify, like a single pipe from a factory. Then you have non-point sources, which are much harder to pin down, kind of spread out like chemical runoff from a huge farm. Let's kick things off with the type of pollution we can all, hear. First up, let's talk about the world of noise. Yeah, sound can be pollution. We don't always think of it that way, but any unwanted sound that messes with our quality of life, whether it's wrecking our sleep or just making it hard to focus, that totally fits the bill. It's like this invisible stress that's just always there. So check this out. This diagram here basically gives us a sound map of our modern world. And you can see all the usual suspects right away. We're talking traffic, factories, construction sites, and yeah, airports, all of them adding to that daily racket. Let's break that down a bit. Traffic is, no surprise, a huge one. As more and more cars pack into our cities, you get this constant symphony of engines and horns. Then you've got factories. Picture the endless hum of textile mills or giant printing presses. Construction sites? Oh yeah, with all that heavy machinery, they're definitely one of the loudest. And we can't forget airports. That sound of a jet taking off is, it's pretty intense. Okay, so let's shift gears from the pollution we hear to the pollution we actually breathe. Air pollution is basically the contamination of our atmosphere with all sorts of nasty gases and particles. It's a huge threat to our health, and it's a really complex mixture. So let's try to unpack where it all comes from. So how do we even begin to sort all this out? Well, this chart is a great place to start. It shows us we can classify air pollutants in a few key ways. First, we can look at its origin. Is it natural or is it man-made? We can look at its state. Is it a gas or a tiny particle? And, really importantly, we can ask if it's a primary or a secondary pollutant.
And this slide explains that last point perfectly. See, primary pollutants are the stuff that's shot directly out of a source. Think smoke from a chimney or exhaust from a car. But secondary pollutants, they're a little sneakier. They actually form up in the air when those primary pollutants have a chemical reaction with other stuff in the atmosphere.
Now let's talk about where it comes from. Believe it or not, nature itself creates air pollution. Things like volcanic eruptions and big forest fires. But let's be real. Look at the other side. Man-made sources are the real problem here. We're talking industries, our cars, you name it. In some big cities, vehicles alone are responsible for a mind-boggling 75% of carbon monoxide and over 80% of all air pollution. That's huge. This table is awesome because it gives us a really clear snapshot. Let's take carbon monoxide, CO. We see it comes from burning gasoline in cars, sure, but also from burning wood or even just getting rid of solid waste. Or look at sulfur oxides, SOx. That comes mostly from burning coal in power plants and refineries. It really shows you how our everyday activities are directly linked to these big atmospheric changes. So pollution isn't just floating around in the air. It's seeping into the ground right under our feet and into the water we absolutely depend on to survive. And the really critical thing to get here is that water and soil pollution are totally connected. Contaminants move between them all the time. One of the single biggest sources of water pollution is us. It's the domestic waste we all create. Literally everything that goes down our drains, detergents, food scraps, you name it, is called municipal waste. And a lot of our detergents contain something called phosphates, which, when they get into our waterways, cause a massive problem. And that problem has a name: eutrophication. Basically, those phosphates act like a super fertilizer for algae, causing these gigantic, out-of-control algae blooms. And it's not just ugly to look at, this stuff can literally choke an entire waterway, messing with everything from fishing and boating to the irrigation we need for farming. And it's not just our homes. Industries are another huge source of water pollution. Industrial waste is often loaded with incredibly toxic stuff, including heavy metals like lead, mercury, and cadmium. And sometimes, this stuff gets discharged right into our rivers and lakes, poisoning the entire ecosystem. And a lot of times, the pollution that ends up in our water actually starts in the soil. Using too much chemical fertilizer can contaminate the ground with all sorts of impurities. Biomedical waste from hospitals can introduce dangerous pathogens. And pesticides? Well, they're designed to kill pests, but the residue can build up in the soil and then get absorbed by the very plants we end up eating. Okay, for our last section, let's turn to a type of pollution we can't see, we can't hear, and we can't smell, but one that is incredibly dangerous: radioactive pollution. It's this invisible threat that comes from both natural places and more, from man-made sources.
So, radiation is actually a natural part of our universe. Cosmic rays from outer space are hitting Earth all the time, but human activities have created some new and very concentrated sources of it. Just think about medical X-rays, or the fallout from testing nuclear weapons, and of course, nuclear power plants.
Nuclear power is a really good example of this. I mean, these plants generate a ton of electricity, but they also create radioactive waste. And even if that waste is buried deep underground, it can sometimes escape as vapors or gases and pollute the area. And if there's an accident, that radioactive fallout can be released right into the atmosphere. So, why is this such a big deal? Because once these radioactive substances get out into the environment, they don't just go away. The wind and rain can carry them for huge distances, and they settle into the soil and the water. From there, plants absorb them, animals eat the plants, and they just keep moving up the food chain, eventually to us. So, we've gone on quite a journey, huh? From the roar of city traffic all the way to the invisible energy of the atom. We've seen how pollution starts in our cars, our homes, our factories, and on our farms. So I guess I'll just leave you with this one thought. Now that you know the sources, which one is closest to you?